In my explaining every move category in Pokémon video, I covered all of the specific categories that certain moves fall under. However, there was enough information that I did not cover in the first video that I feel it could use a follow-up. I will address some additional information that I missed in the categories I included, categories that I forgot to include, and categories that I intentionally decided not to include that I will talk about in this video. For biting moves, I forgot to clarify that Bug Bite is not a biting move despite having bite in the name. This one honestly should be a biting move though, as the description states that the user bites the target. While the Japanese version translates to Bug Bite, it is more along the lines of Bug Eat, which would explain the move's unique property of eating the opponent's berry, and could maybe be a reason why it's not a biting move. For pulse moves, I forgot to mention that all pulse moves have the property of being able to target anyone on the battlefield in a triple battle, but this is not really too relevant anymore since triple battles are no longer in the game. For ball and bomb moves, many of you mentioned that they are more like ballistic moves, or moves that use projectiles, which makes a lot more sense when looking at the list of ball and bomb moves. For powder and spore moves, I forgot to mention that powder snow is not a powder and spore move. This is because for the most part, the powder refers to plant-based or dust-like powder like pollen from a tree. But if powder snow isn't a powder move, I feel like magic powder shouldn't be either. I also feel like pollen puff should be a powder and spore move because of the dusty nature of most portrayals of pollen. Anyway, those are just some small bits of information I missed in the last video that I feel would be fun to add here. Let's now move on to the one category I forgot that I should have mentioned in the previous video, which is dancing moves. These are all attacking or status moves that generally involve the user doing some kind of dance. Dancing moves interact with the ability Dancer, in that when a dancing move is used in battle by any other Pokémon, the user will immediately copy that move to use for itself without the use of another turn. Most dancing moves are pretty straightforward, as they have dance in the name of the move, but I want to point out the two that don't, Clangorous Soul and Aqua Step. Clangorous Soul being a dancing move could be a reference to Clangorous Soul Blaze, Komo-O's signature Z move, where the trainer and Komo-O perform quite the dance to pull off this move. Clangorous Soul is also a sound-based move, another move like Aura Sphere that is part of multiple categories at once. Aqua Step is a dancing move because Quaquavol's design is likely based off of Brazilian carnival dancers, with both Quaquavol's in-game animations and the animation of this move involving light and fluid dance steps. Rain Dance is not a dancing move because the Japanese version translates to Rain Prayer, which does not involve dancing. Now, let's move on to move categories that I intentionally excluded from the first video. I didn't include these following categories mostly because they are either very easy to tell from the move's in-game description, they consist of very few moves, or they consist of way too many moves. But since many of you commented these categories, I've decided to include them this time around. I will still exclude categories that have no interactions with abilities or items, and any categories with over 100 moves. First up, we have explosive moves. These are all physical and special attacking moves that involve the user exploding. Exploding moves interact with the ability Damp, in that exploding moves will fail if used when a Pokémon with this ability is on the field. Since the list of explosive moves is so small, let's take a closer look at all of them. They are all 100% accurate and hit all adjacent Pokémon, with Explosion, Misty Explosion, and Self-Destruct causing the user to faint upon use. Explosion is physical and normal type with a base power of 250, Self-Destruct is the same just with a base power of 200, and Misty Explosion is special and fairy type with a base power of 100 and 150 on misty terrain. Mind Blown is special and fire type with a base power of 150 and does not cause the user to faint upon use, but does still deal half of the user's max HP. Next is Recoil Moves. These are all physical attacking moves that damage the user by a certain amount based on how much damage it deals to the target. Recoil Moves interact with the abilities Reckless and Rockhead. Reckless increases the power of recoil moves by 20%, and Rockhead makes the user take no recoil damage from these moves. Reckless also increases the power of moves with crash damage, which is technically another category, but it's so small and not as interesting as something like explosive moves, so I've decided not to include it separately. All recoil moves damage the user either by 1/4, 1/3, or 1/2 of the damage dealt. Light of Ruin is also a recoil move, but it's exclusive to Eternal Flower Floette, which has never been made obtainable legitimately. Yet. Next is one-hit knockout moves, or OHKO for short. These are all physical and special attacking moves that instantly knock out an opponent if they connect. OHKO moves interact with the ability Sturdy, in that Pokemon with this ability are immune to all OHKO moves. There are 4 OHKO moves in the game, and they all share pretty much the exact same characteristics other than their types. Horn Drill and Guillotine are normal type, so ghost types are immune. Fissure is ground type, so flying types are immune. And Sheer Cold is ice type, and ice types were made to be immune starting in Generation 7. They are not affected by accuracy and evasion stat changes, and they do not use the traditional accuracy check, with its accuracy being based off of this formula starting in Generation 3. To make sense of this formula, all you need to know is that the base accuracy is 30%, and it increases by 1 for every level that the user is higher than the target, and fails completely if the user is a lower level than the target. While these moves cannot have their base accuracy increased, they can have their accuracy made to be perfect with either the moves Mind Reader or Lock On, or the ability No Guard. Next is Multistrike Moves. These are all physical and special attacking moves that hit multiple times. I decided to separate out these Multistrike Moves since they hit a set number of times and do not interact with various abilities and items the same way as Multistrike Moves that hit a varying number of times. Multistrike Moves interact with the ability Skill Link in the item Loaded Dice. Skill Link guarantees that all Multistrike Moves will hit the maximum number of times, which is 5 in all cases except for Triple Axle and Triple Kick, which hit a maximum of 3 times, and Population Bomb, which hits a maximum of 10 times. Those 3 moves will also only have 1 accuracy check for the entirety of the move instead of checking for each individual hit. Loaded Dice guarantees that Multistrike Moves will hit at least 4 times, which is going to be 4 or 5 times in all cases except for those same 3 moves, Triple Axle, Triple Kick, and Population Bomb. Triple Axle and Triple Kick will have 1 accuracy check and will always hit 3 times, and Population Bomb will also have 1 accuracy check and will hit from 4 to 10 times. Next is Charging Moves. These are all attacking or status moves that require a turn to charge before taking full effect. The category of Charging Moves technically has a subcategory of moves with a semi-invulnerable turn, but these moves have no unique interactions with any items or abilities that the other moves do not. They do have some unique interactions with other moves though, like Earthquake being able to hit opponents on the semi-invulnerable turn of a Dig, and Sky Uppercut being able to hit opponents on the semi-invulnerable turn of Fly and Bounce. All charging moves interact with the item Power Herb, in that if a Pokemon holding the Power Herb uses a charging move, it will consume the Power Herb and be able to use that move in 1 turn. Next is Healing Moves. These are all attacking or status moves that heal HP. The category of Healing Moves has 3 subcategories that interact differently with various items and abilities, starting off with a subcategory of HP Draining Moves. These are all attacking or status moves that heal the user depending on how much damage is dealt to the target, with one exception. Next subcategory under Healing Moves is status moves that heal the user immediately. Sorry, there isn't really a better name for it. These are all status moves that necessarily heal the user on the same turn the move is used, assuming the move connects and the user is not already at full health. The third doesn't have an official name, but I'm just going to call it moves that heal the target immediately. These are status moves that necessarily heal the target on the same turn that the move is used, assuming the move connects and the target is not already at full health. The ability Triage interacts with all of these subcategories, and the ability Liquid Ooze and the item Big Root only interact with HP draining moves. Triage grants +3 priority to all healing moves. Liquid Ooze makes it so that using a draining move against a Pokemon with Liquid Ooze will damage the user instead of healing, and Big Root increases the amount of damage the user will heal with draining moves by 30%. The one exception I mentioned earlier for HP draining moves is Strength Sap, as it heals HP depending on the target's attack and is a status move that does not deal any damage. The Big Root also increases the HP healed for the 3 status moves Aqua Ring, Ingrain, and Leech Seed, which do not interact with either Triage or Liquid Ooze. They do not interact with Triage because they do not necessarily heal the user or the target's HP on the same turn that they are used, and they do not interact with Liquid Ooze because they are status moves that only target and affect the user. This is the same reason that Triage does not interact with moves like Pain Split and Pollen Puff, as there are scenarios where these moves will damage the target instead of healing the target. Lastly, we have Trapping Moves. These are all attacking or status moves that trap the target in battle, preventing them from fleeing or switching out. Like Healing Moves, Trapping Moves have multiple subcategories that interact differently with various items and abilities, starting off with a subcategory of Binding Moves. These are all physical and special attacking moves that both trap the target and damage the target by 1/8 of their max HP for 4 to 5 turns. The other subcategory under trapping moves doesn't have a specific name, so I'll just call them non-binding trapping moves. These are all physical attacking or status moves that prevent fleeing or switching out. The items Binding Band and Grip Claw interact with binding moves, and the items Shed Shell, the ability Runaway, and the Ghost type interact with all trapping moves. Binding Band increases the damage done at the end of the turn from binding moves from 1/8 of the target's max HP to 1/6, and Grip Claw increases the number of turns a Pokemon is bound from 4 or 5 turns to a guaranteed 7 turns. Shed Shell makes the holder unaffected by the trapping effects of trapping moves. Runaway allows the user to flee but not switch out if affected by a trapping move, and any Pokemon that is Ghost type is immune to all forms of trapping. And those are some more Pokemon move categories. Let me know in the comments if you feel that I missed any categories, or if there was any information that I missed on the categories I did include. Other than that, I really appreciate if you made it all the way to the end of this video, as it did take a while to make. Thanks for watching.